Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, announcements. This meeting is being held in accordance with New Jersey statute requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the press and posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building. Announcement regarding building permits and mercantile licenses. All applicants are hereby advised that if you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form outlining the procedures for obtaining building permits and mercantile licenses. At the conclusion of your case tonight, please approach the board administrator to sign the provided information sheet.
Roll call, Mike.
Roll call.
Tom Collins.
Here.
Craig Palmisano.
Here.
Richard Patterson.
Here.
John Pitts.
Here.
Michael Cristaldi. Jim Galantino.
Here.
Margaret Gubernalti.
Here.
Stephen Giesecke.
Here.
Michael Ruffey.
Here.
Andrew Campbell.
Here.
Michael Richard.
Here. Okay, approval of minutes.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of resolutions.
Number
We
12.
gotta call 'em out.
24.
Sorry, do I have that page?
We got a train to catch?
Oh, wait a minute. There we go.
Read that resolution number on the record.
Number 12, 2024, Jack Roach and Tina Sacco.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right.
Applications, Leo, I think you have an announcement.
Yeah, if anyone's here for the application 109 South Argyle LLC, which is at 109 South Argyle Avenue, Block 102, Lot 6, that's not going to be heard this evening. And then next month, we have like 7 cases, so it's going to be bumped to May 30th. So that application will be heard May 30th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m., not 7 o'clock, 6:30 p.m. in this room. The applicant will not be required to republish or renotice. So if you're here from that, I don't see anyone sitting here for it, but that's your official notice that to come back on May 30th.
Okay. All right, we're going to do our first case, our only case, Daniel Dzia the third, 8903 Amherst Avenue, Block 520, Lot 51.02, located in the S40 zoning district, seeking C variance relief for side yard setback, combined side yard setback, and potentially others in order to elevate the existing single-family home. Current on taxes, water, and sewer payments, proof of advertising and notifications provided. Represented by Christopher M. Balanson.
Swear me.
Get Mr. McLaren sworn in. Mr. McLaren, please raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony you'll give this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. The report is based on the application of Daniel Dizio III, 8903 Amherst Avenue, Block 520, Lot 51.02, located in the S40WF zoning district. FEMA zone elevation 9, so required first floor is elevation 13 minimum. C variance for the planning and zoning report deemed complete. It's typically, these waterfront properties is a hardship variance because the part of the lot is in the water, and substantial benefit variance is the heavier weight of the two. So the background is as follows. Variances are being requested for existing non-conforming side yard setbacks, including an aggregate side yard setback. In addition, a height variance is required for the cupola, which is not a permitted height exception. Again, there's some background history to this project. The cupola complied with the height when the house was built with a lower height limit of 28 feet versus the current 30 feet. So they're gaining 2 feet, which helps them. So the cupola is the only variance in regard to a height of 1.5 feet. And again, it's just for a very small portion of the project of the house. The side yard setbacks, 10 feet is required on each side and 22 feet based on the lot width for the lot aggregate side yard setbacks. 9.9 feet is measured on a survey. Typically, the city's ordinance does allow for 4 inches of, if you take a measurement to the siding or if there's brick face, there's a 4-inch fluff on there. But since they're requesting it, and it's in the report, and it's on the survey, we'll look at that as a variance of 9.9 feet for each side yard, or 10 feet is required. Again, that's existing non-conforming, it's not being expanded other than upwards. And the combined side yard setback of 22 feet where 19.8 feet is provided. Again, that's existing non-conforming, and the upward lift of the house is causing the expansion of the non-conformity. And finally, the building height is 31.5 feet above BFE +4 to the cupola. And again, we have changed the ordinance to allow 30 feet of height across the board, and it's 1.5-foot variance. And I did have a front yard landscape question on my report for coverage. Andrew provided the testimony, but he informed me that it does comply, so I will take his word at that. And also the existing landscape requirements of shrubs, that will comply? Okay, fine. Again, I'm not gonna go through all the items reviewed. Everyone saw the report, and I'll turn it over to the applicant to provide testimony.
Thank you, Mr. McLaren. Board members, my name is Chris Valens, and I represent Dan Dizio, who's sitting behind me with respect to his property, 8903 Amherst Avenue. It's on Sunset Lagoon? Orient Lagoon, Sunset Lagoon. Right in the middle of the top of the lagoon. As you heard from Roger, the variance application this evening relates to raising this house to comply with FEMA requirements. But in order to get sufficient height to park underneath, the house is being raised higher than 13, which is the base flood elevation for the first floor. Part of the problem, and Andrew will tell you, is that this is an internal split in many different ways. So the first floor elevation changes depending upon where you are in the house. And that has an impact on the height being requested today. Some areas under the house are fine, and other areas are not. And that's part of the reason for the height for the first floor request being higher than 13. Side yard setbacks are existing, they're 1/10 of an inch off on each side. Probably a surveying error either now or then. The combined side yard setback of 22. 22, as you know, is the maximum you're required to have. And this is a relatively smaller lot because of the lot depth being in the water. So we've got 10 and 10 on each side essentially, which is a fairly substantial side yard setback in that neighborhood for that size of a lot. It's, and that, the benefit then is for the people up the street to see the water. The other variance is for the cupola, which somehow in 2010, when it was 28-foot height limit, fell within the height. It doesn't now. It's 1.5 feet over, just the center of it, a portion of it. I don't really think it would have any impact on anybody. There's certainly no neighbors look in that direction or are high enough to look in that direction that would impact them. And certainly anybody down the street, anybody down the street, it's almost in the center of the street, so you really wouldn't, it's not in the center of the street, so you really wouldn't see it as you look toward the water from up Sumner Avenue. Andrew Bechtold of Thomas and Bechtold is the architect. He can be sworn and take it away.
Okay, Mr. Bechtel, just give us your name and business address, please, and I'll swear you in.
Sure. Andrew Bechtold, 599 Shore Road, Summers Point, New Jersey, 08244.
And please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you'll give this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. And he's been here several times.
The board accepts
No, we
Mr.
accept
Bechtold's
your-
qualifications as
Yes.
architect.
Thank you very much.
Andrew, I spoke really fast in that introduction, so if you could just clear that up a little bit and kind of tell the board where we were when we started and what we're going through.
Sure. So we originally designed and had the house constructed quite a while ago, and back then it did comply to all the zoning regs. 10 foot on either side was at the time the regulations required, and 28 feet to the top of the cupola was what the building was. As mentioned before, we now need definitely an aggregate setback, side yard setback for 22 feet, but we're 19.8 feet total. The height, actually, believe it or not, from the new height baseline, we're actually 28 feet to the main body of the roof. The only section is about a 2.5% area of the cupola that is actually in excess of the roof. So in the grand scheme of things, that cupola is about 2.5% of the entire roofed area. So over 97% of the roof is actually below what is required or what is allowed at 30 feet. It's at 28 feet. So yes, and technically speaking, it's 1 foot 9 inches, 1.75 feet above, so it's a little.
When the house is 28 feet tall.
The house is 28 feet tall from where it was measured before, and it's still going to be 28 feet measured from where the height is, the base flood plus 4.
So part of the cupola is actually within the 30 feet permitted.
Well, yes, the lower half of it is correct. But again, the cupola that's existing, instead of removing it from the house or trying to lower it, thus it just made sense when we're lifting the house to leave it alone and keep it the way it is. Again, 97% of the house is actually 2 feet below what's permitted, and only 2.5% is above by 1 foot 9 inches. It's still a pretty small portion of the roof.
So the issue is, we have certain height exceptions in residential neighborhoods, and cupola is not specifically listed. However, if that was an elevator shaft, that would be a permitted height encroachment.
Correct, absolutely. And then as far as the height is concerned, again, the building needs to be elevated regardless because it's below the design flood requirements. But my client was like, well, if I'm going to lift the building, I might as well lift it up high enough that I can actually have some usable storage space underneath the building. And also have some outdoor space, which is what we've also created.
You've designed in, under the house, you've designed in for space that's open.
Absolutely. So on your sheet, on your document that you have before you, specifically sheet ZB4. Do I need to speak on the microphone? Yes, you can.
Yes, please.
Can you hear me? Is this on?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So if you look at ZB4, you'll notice the upper left-hand plan. You can see that we've created an outdoor space immediately off behind the garage space for outdoor seating and hanging out. That's also where the pool area is already on the house. So we're creating that outdoor space, and then the other portion of the space is at-grade access into the home, and also just storage space down on the left-hand side. So the right-hand side is a garage and outdoor lanai space, and then the left side of the house is all the storage and entry into the house to get up to the next level, to get up to the other levels inside the home.
The house otherwise went up, there's no change.
Correct. Basically, what we've done is we've created storage area and outdoor space underneath the house because the house had to be lifted regardless because of where it sat before.
What's the ceiling height of the storage space?
The ceiling height of the storage space, go over to this side. And this goes back hand in hand with what Mr. Ballinson said before. So the height of the storage space on that side is actually going to be 9 foot 6 inches. Now it's 9 foot 6 inches and not just straight up 8 feet because this section right here on the back side of the house is actually 1.5 feet lower than that. So that space is actually 8 foot and the other spot is 9, but I can't lift the house in pieces. I'm lifting the house as a whole. So there was, if you go back to the ZB4, I apologize for flipping this around for you, but on the back side of this building, there was a lower bedroom, bathroom, and walk-in closet that was on the back side of the garage, and that area was down further than the rest of the house on this. This is a house of a lot of levels, so I guess that's how it was back in the early 2000s.
Interior spaces really drove the height.
Correct. So that's why there's an exaggerated height on the left-hand side of the home. Because again,
For the floor.
correct, that's where the floor is. And again, we wanted to have that 8 foot of space on this side behind the garage. So that drove kind of where everything else went. And again, we're 2 feet under the height for most of the entire home, with the exception of that 3% area. And then I did want to address Mr. McLaren's report where he was asking about the front landscape coverage, where 60% is required around 700 square feet of this front section of the house. The front section of this house will actually have 711 square feet of landscape area, so it'll be right around 61%, so about 1% better. And again, we're trying to keep this all pretty much the way it was, just a taller stair to get up into the house, and then again have an at-grade entry underneath coming into the home.
Andrew, in light of the fact that the house is being raised to comply with FEMA criteria, Margate flood hazard ordinance criteria, do you think that positive outweighs any potential negative?
Well, absolutely.
I don't see any negative, but any negative that may be.
Well, and again, this house could also have been removed and we could start from 9 feet above, grade and then build our 30 feet on top of that because of, the new regulations as well. So technically speaking, we're basically right where our floor should be and we're not taller than what would normally be permitted. So with the exception of a very small portion of the cupola. So yes, I don't believe it's any detriment. In fact, it's lower than most newer construction would have been in this area. And it's a relatively modest home. Again, we're getting some more storage. When this house was originally built, the only storage was in the garage, so it made it difficult to actually have off-street parking. You're going to have 4 compliant off-street parking spaces on this lot, and now more so because,
The garage is actually useful.
Don't you have them now?
yes, sir, we do.
You have
But-
you have 4 spaces right now as exist.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what I was wondering, what it says here, you're doing it to additional parking.
Right, what he was alluding to is that there being no other storage in the entire house, some of the garage was used for storage, obviously, and not a true
Okay.
4 spaces. Now there
Yeah.
will be a true 4 spaces because we have.
Yeah, I saw surfboards or something. One day the door was open.
Yeah, so again, so to have that ability that now you have quite a bit more storage space, you have some outdoor space to be out by the pool, and then again, you'll have the space inside the garage to have a true parking.
The garage height looks like it's going to be about 14 feet inside?
Yes, sir, so there could even be potentially loft space for, like you said, surfboards and other things that could be stored, off-season in the
And
garage.
are you raising the back deck 1.5 or something like that?
So everything is being raised as one, so yes, everything.
The deck on the outside?
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
So it's not going above 18, is it?
That is correct, sir, and that's stated in Mr. McLaren's
Right,
report.
so
Yes,
that's
sir.
why, that way you can go all the way to the end line to the fences and stuff?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And that's where they are now?
Yes, sir.
So, one more time, so if you were to tear this house down and rebuild it, it could actually be higher than what it's going to
Absolutely.
be with the lift?
With the exception of the cupola.
Right,
Unless we
right.
call that a big elevator shaft, yes,
Right.
it could be taller.
Okay.
And most likely would be taller.
Okay.
And again, going back to Mr. McLaren's report, our coverage is also substantially less than what would be required. I mean, 50% is max, and we're at 36.6. So by us raising this house and making it more accommodating and more of a potential year-round home for my client, we're also keeping the size of the home down from what could potentially be built there. Again, my client had no intention of doing that. He just
Right.
wanted to get this thing out of the flood and get some more storage space for his
Right.
family.
And you're like,
What's the square footage of the storage space you have there?
The square footage of the storage space is, I don't have a dimension on it, I apologize. Let's see. I have something. It's gonna be, I have to ballpark this, I apologize. I think that storage space is gonna, well, the garage is approximately 500 square feet, so that storage area is, I'm gonna say, probably close to 1,200 square feet of space down there. Now, again, that's also an at-grade level entrance space as well. So those that, instead of kind of hiking up the steps, they can actually come indoors and go inside that way. And also come in from the garage and go inside and go up that way as well. So it's a little bit of a combination of a lot of things, but I'd say it's about 1,200 square feet of downstairs space.
Basically, what you're doing and the trend that we've been leaning toward, as Mr. Valenson will tell you, is when you're elevating and putting parking and doing underneath, you're gonna have 1,200 square feet at almost 10-foot ceilings.
No,
So-
not that,
so
well, yes, sir.
What I'm saying is, we've been making conditions, the last couple of times we did, Chris did a couple, where some of that space to get you the elevation is left open, so it can't be
that's why the whole
enclosed.
back, that's why the whole.
And
back-
that's why
whole
the
corner-
entire,
On the other side,
whole back corner
I'm
is left
saying
open.
the 1,200 square feet.
correct, but again, there's this amount of space over on this side that could have been enclosed underneath the bedroom space and this other bedroom, these other 2 bedroom spaces, which is probably, again, close to 500-ish square feet of space. So that entire area is wide open underneath, and it's the
I
lanai
under-
space.
I understand that, and it's a veranda for the pool,
Mm-hmm.
but why do you have to go from 550 square feet to 1,200 square feet on the other side?
Because you can. I mean,
You
you
can,
can.
but if we give a
You
variance.
prefer not to. I
if-
understand that.
If, right, and what we've seen as a trend in Margate, not that he would do that, I don't care if he does not, is that people convert them into rooms and stuff.
Understood.
So if they leave part of that open, then it's not such a massive structure,
But that, I mean,
enclosing
God,
the whole
that-
bottom.
that-
So do you
we could-
really
we could
need
let-
1,200
what-
square feet of
What could have happened is we
storage?
could have left the whole downstairs enclosed and come in and said, we'll open up the whole back corner. And that probably would have been okay. But since we now have left that open, now you're saying, give me more. I mean, and to the applicant, that's not really fair because he can have that storage
Chris,
space.
it's not that, it's you're taking a high, the premise is you're meeting FEMA, but by how much? And you're exceeding, that's why you're here for variance, and you're adding double the storage space on the first floor, when it could be air, light, and open space,
Well,
you
it's not
know,
airlight open space, it's got a roof over it, I mean, it's.
it still would be airlight and open space. You're still gonna have air and breezes through.
I understand.
So, you know, it's
But isn't- but
it's a lot of
For instance-
ground floor space with a lot of height.
I understand. Isn't that,
You could
unless
put
you,
a boat in.
Andrew, unless you have a response, before I start, he has a better response, you're here, than I have.
I'm just running Let me ask a question too while he's running that. You could raise it without a variance up to the FEMA level. How much extra are you asking for?
2 feet, 2.5 feet.
But you already have
So
the
you,
garage
so you
line.
would have 7.5 feet in that space without a variance.
Right.
In some areas of it,
That area is actually 976 square feet, give or take a couple feet, so I was a little heavy on it, but 976.
Still close to double.
you got, I mean, but you guys have, you have a house that's 2 feet under the height requirement, and the cupola is what drives, I mean, the cupola could come on. Then we've got 1/10 of an inch on each side.
The reason that we grant variances for this is to create parking underneath, and that's not a reason here. And the reason we do that is because of people putting bedrooms in.
Understand?
And parking is the big problem in town, and one way we do that is to try to restrict the bedrooms. FEMA doesn't allow it down there, but everybody seems to do it.
Well, how do you
So-
know everybody seems to do it?
Because I've walked in and seen.
But that's really an
I-
enforcement, it's an
you know-
enforcement issue, Rich. You know, that, I mean, in Ocean City, you do that and you go to jail. We just don't enforce it, and so people are gonna do it. And so don't, I mean, it's not here to remedy that situation. That's an enforcement issue. I understand what you're saying. You could dissuade people
Well,
doing it.
okay.
I guess another rebuttal potentially to that question is this. Very recently, Margate was only 3 feet above base flood. Then miraculously changed to 4. I would have been absolutely livid if I was a client who came in here to get a 3-foot variance, did it, and then a year later, it's now 4, and now I'm under again. So again, it's a moving target. It wouldn't surprise me if it winds up going to 5 eventually, and
Sooner than later.
sooner than later. And my argument is this: if you can provide actual storage space and more potential usable storage space to get things out of a garage so that you can have the compliant parking, like Mr. Balance has said before, there's no excuse not to have enough storage here now. You got all the storage in the world. And yes, maybe you didn't have these 2 parking spaces in the garage because you just didn't have enough room to put it because you had too many bikes in there. I mean, you can cram a whole bunch of bikes in here.
Pool equipment, pool furniture, deck,
All the
patio
other
equipment.
accoutrements that go with it. And again, I totally understand your point, but to also have a house that's significantly under the square footage, significantly by 14% almost underneath the square footage.
And the height.
And to have the height that's 2 feet under for 97% of it,
And 10-foot side yard setbacks.
and the
9.9, Chris.
I understand.
with the 4 inches of fluff.
Depends on the survey area.
So again, I think the benefits outweigh any detriments, especially having legitimate off-street parking inside the garage now instead of just cramming it in there.
And one thing I do see frequently is people that have garages and they don't park a car in there because they got all their bikes in there, they got all their beach stuff in there, so now you can, there's no excuse to do that.
How do you know that?
That's exactly why he's doing this, so he can get.
And the argument too is if you're
Right.
coming up enough feet and you only need to come up 2 more, we'd rather come in here and ask for your permission to do so to make it a heck of a lot more usable space than somebody
Right.
smacking their head on a 2x4 underneath the building.
It's also safer from flood, top higher, God forbid.
Chris, on
You
that
also
question.
sign a legal document that says it's called a non-conversion agreement. And a non-conversion agreement says you can't do what you're doing. So theoretically, and Jimmy, you can speak to this, if you came back there a year later and you found living space in there, what would you do?
Make them deconvert it.
Right. And believe me, it happens, right, Roger? In Ventnor, people try to sneak bathrooms in on the ground floor, they get caught, boom.
And we-
They're out.
Longport's policing like crazy now.
and we've
Yeah.
got 500 square feet empty, like Tom suggests, and but that's,
Quick
Because-
question then for Jimmy. How many inspections have we done on these properties in the last year?
The non-conversion, the converted properties, we gotta find ones in violation. So we're probably gonna look at this summer and go around and start inspecting them, but most of them are not, people aren't here. So they're gonna
The
be
answer is 0.
0.
Yeah, but in Longport, they have inspections, and if everybody's so concerned about the non-conversion, maybe we should, I don't know if it's our privy, but, have set something up where, you have inspections.
conversion is a state requirement. And on that non-conversion agreement says that the municipality is allowed to come in and inspect. You sign away that right. I mean, I don't have people do it, but If you just go in and sign it, that's what it says. Gives you the right to do that inspection,
It's deed restricted, correct.
and it's recorded with the deed.
Right.
Exactly.
One question I got,
People's there to do it, it just doesn't get done.
Chris, the air conditioning system, will that be elevated? Because that's too low now.
That-
If he's
Yes,
gonna-
it is elevated.
Going up, yes.
Yes, sir.
And the pool equipment, where's the pool machinery?
What that pool equipment is. I don't recall where the pool equipment is. Unfortunately, we didn't do the pool. That was done after us, but
I believe right now it's next to the air conditioner. Yeah, so
then we would elevate that with it.
elevate and do it there. Yeah. Any consideration to modifying the cupola to get it under height?
I mean, you could take the whole dang thing apart, but I mean, that's the beauty of doing a lift renovation. You're not touching the inside, and God forbid, somebody doesn't put a tarp over it, now you got to claim because it got rainwater inside my entire house. It'd be kind of silly to take it apart for only 2.5% of the entire building, when, as Roger stated before, if that was an elevator shaft coming up through, we'd be allowed to have it anyway. And for 1.9 feet, when everything
I
else
agree
is
with you
below.
guys, for a big house that's maxing out its footprint, maxing out its height. This is, for the most part, a two-story house, well under in coverage, substantial side yard setbacks, under the height. It's
Not adding any living space?
maybe
correct?
not the house to enforce this type of desire on. There are those out there that you should, maybe not this one. This is a relatively modest property, which is well under the ordinance requirements.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody from the public want to speak? Public portion's closed. Leo, anything?
Chris, anything else? Chris, you ready?
All set.
Okay. And Jimmy, with the lift, they have to do a non-conversion agreement too, not just new, okay. So I'll note that in there, but it's required anyway.
Required.
It might be in Roger's report. So, it's a C variance application. Need a motion and a second for the following C variances. There's the side yard setbacks on each side, I'll note them. Roger's comments regarding those, but 10 feet's the requirement. They're 9.9 feet on each side. Then there's the combined side yard setback of 19.8 feet, where 22 feet's required. And then the last variance is the height to that cupola. 30 feet's permitted, and they're 31 and a half feet to the
C
top,
variance.
to the top of the cupola, which, based on the 10% rule, it's a C variance, not a D variance. And then the conditions will note the non-conversion agreement. Anything else in Mr. McLaren's report? Applicant will comply with any representations made during the course of the hearing and subject to any outside approvals, the normal standard conditions.
I'll second.
Tom Collins,
Chris, you're giving me a difficult case to look at tonight here. Trying to see what the justification is for either C1 or C2. There is no substantial benefit.
Raising the house.
Yeah, no, it's just not there for me. And hardship, it's close, only because of the riparian and most of the property, a big section of the property underwater. The fact that you cut out a lot of the garage, even though you're using it for a pool and a veranda, does weigh, in my opinion. Means that you weren't greedy, you were trying to give some back. Normally, I would just say, no, you have way too much storage in that space, but because of the location and the type of property that you have, I'll vote in favor.
Craig Palmisano,
Yeah, the variances I feel are very minimus on the side yard setbacks and total yard setback, and also the height, the foot and a half of the cupola that's been there for quite a while. I don't want to stop a house raise. They're good for Margate, they're good for our insurance policies. You have full parking underneath. I think you have it now, and I want you to keep it and make it bigger. I want you to get all that stuff out of there and make a full parking space. and I go by there every day walking dogs, and I live a block away. But, so that's why I've seen the garage open before, and I know it's got room for cars. So that's why I kind of questioned this with saying it was for more cars, but it's not. But like I said, I don't want to stop the house raising, and I'm going to go higher in the future. And I want the legal documents to be signed that it's a non-conversion, and I want it enforced. So I'm going to say yes to this one, to the house raise.
Richard Patterson.
Well, I was just as troubled as the prior two guys were with this. The fact that we allow the variances. I was just as troubled as the prior two members, that we allow the variance if you're creating parking, you're not creating parking here. But again, with the excellent legal representation, cleaning out the garages, it makes perfect sense that the garages would be cleaned out and opening up that space in the back. So the cupola would be ridiculous to take it off. It met the law before, so we should allow it. So I vote yes.
John Pitts.
Yeah, anytime we're raising a house in town, it's good. Concur with what everyone said so far. You could have made some effort, I think, to do something with that cupola. And I don't know that you had to remove it, but I think you could have reduced the height, gotten away from that variance, the height variance. The side yard variances are no issue. I'm going to reject it.
Jim Galantino.
It's a tough case. I mean, you got a house that was built that was flood compliant, like you said, back in 2004 or 6, I think. 3, yeah. I think that was Silva built that house, Bluebell. And now we're going to get it even higher. And we're getting the mechanical equipment off the ground and more flood vents. I don't think there's enough flood vents. And for that, I approve the application.
Margaret Gubernalty.
I see this case as a homeowner needing more storage on the bay. So he can put his paddle boards and kayaks and whatever else he needs. 97, approximately 97, 98% of the house is 2 foot under the height of which it could possibly be. So I don't see any negative impacts to the neighbors, to our land use law. The side yard setbacks are de minimis, and I approve the application.
Stephen Giesecke.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with the rest of the board. It's an unusual house in the sense that it's on multi-levels, which creates a problem. I can see that. I think the cupola, if it was never there, it would not be an issue. And I can make an exception on this case. And the fact that I believe that you are opening up the garage for storage, for your cars, because everybody knows that garages are used for their beach chairs and their kayaks, and so you're making that room, so I will approve.
Michael Richmond.
Yeah, we're getting the house out of the flood zone. We're actually creating more parking because now there'll be room to put the stuff in it besides the garage. If it was a new house, it could be, what did we say, 2 feet higher than even how much higher would it be than the cupola, or would it?
Take the cupola off, give it 2 feet higher without the cupola.
The rest of the house could be higher, but without the cupola.
Right.
Not higher than the cupola.
Right, so if you built a new house, you'd have a cupola, we'd still be 2 feet higher, right? Yeah, so the cupola's inconsequential. So for all those reasons, I'm going to vote yes.
Okay, and Michael Ruffey.
I agree with the other board members who are in favor of this application, so I'll vote yes on this also.
Okay. The application is approved with 8 in favor and 1 opposed.
Thank you all very much.
Can I make a motion to close? Can I make a motion to close the... Mike, I make a motion to close the meeting?
Thanks, you guys.
Sure.
Make a motion to close the meeting? Who's in the public?
Okay, we're good? All right, motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
All in favor?